Yep. Good evening, everyone. Yep. So, yesterday we learnt about components in our application. Yes. So, we discussed about how to use components. We discussed about JavaScript module system and components in module system. Component in module system we learned. So, in our previous class, these two topics we learned. I hope everyone understood. So, module systems, they are good for reusability and all. And separately, how to maintain functions and use them in our project, we have seen that. Now, in a module system, components, import, export, and their rules you learnt, aliasing I showed you. Now, today, we will see how we can work with these components in a more detail. So what we are going to learn, set up the environment with Bootstrap. Okay. To because in the next level we are going to build some apps. We are going to build some good user interface. For that we need styling. We can write our own styles. Yesterday I told you that every component have three files. The component JSX, CSS, another one test. Test files will have spec or test.js. So today we will see one more point so that we can create design, and that is enable Bootstrap. Enable Bootstrap for a React app. How to enable Bootstrap for React application. In real-time projects, in React applications, we use libraries like Bootstrap and Tailwind. Tailwind I will explain later. While learning with TypeScript and React application, I will show you Tailwind, how Tailwind works. Initially, how to enable Bootstrap in our React application, we'll see. Actually, to enable Bootstrap in our previous example, we have to install all the libraries and link to every page. Now, it is simple. You will link at one location and we can use from any location. How? See. What you have to do is, yesterday we worked with this project. So this is our application. This is React demo app. In this application, we created a login screen, and observe, I will run this npm run dev. It will start the project, and we have a simple login screen created. Yesterday we done that with our own styles. Am I right? Now we need to enable Bootstrap into this. Let's see how to enable Bootstrap and design the good interface. First step, if you want to use Bootstrap in a React project, first what you have to do is install following libraries into project from terminal. From the terminal, you have to install npm install Bootstrap and Bootstrap icons and save. So the first thing you have to do, install Bootstrap for project. Bootstrap and Bootstrap icons, these are required. So we are installing these two. Let's install these two. We have a terminal here. In your project terminal, you have to run the commands npm for install I shortcut. Anytime you can use I. We have Bootstrap. Another one is Bootstrap icons. Save. We are downloading Bootstrap and Bootstrap icons. After installing, you observe carefully in the user interface, there is no change. Because Bootstrap is installed, but it is not enabled in the project. There is no change. We have to enable. Let's enable Bootstrap. How to enable is you have to go to main.jsx. In main.jsx, you have to import the Bootstrap files here. Anywhere there is no order. How to import the Bootstrap files? Import. Bootstrap files are copied into Node modules. All libraries that you download are copied into Node modules. So dot dot slash, in that we have Node modules, in that Bootstrap, dist, CSS and bootstrap.css. That is one file. Another file for icons. We have Node modules, Bootstrap icons. In that we have a font icons.css. Another important, Bootstrap will provide JavaScript functionalities also. And if you want to get them, you have to import Node modules and Bootstrap dist. In that JS, we have a Bootstrap bundle.js. That JavaScript file also you have to import. Because Bootstrap is having both CSS and logic. CSS will come from those two files and logic related all functionalities will come from this bundle. So you need to link these three files. So what you have to do in the next step is link following files to main.jsx. So how we can link them using an import statement. Node modules, bootstrap dist css, bootstrap.css. That is one file. Node modules, bootstrap icons, font, bootstrap icons.css. And node modules, bootstrap, in that dist js bootstrap.bundle.js. These are all the files you need to set up in main. So these are the bootstrap files you need to set up. So once you set up here, you can use bootstrap classes and components from any location in project. You can use the bootstrap classes and components from any location. So when you learn this bootstrap, you learn some classes and functions. Those are accessible from anywhere. Let's see how bootstrap can make little difference here is, see, we designed a login screen already. Our styles are there. We are having some styles, and you see, is there anything else changed? Yes, actually font style changed a little bit, and these are bold letters, right? Some font family has changed. Now, if you have bootstrap knowledge, see what we are doing here is, let's go to the login. For this form container, I am applying a class, suppose W some 25. That is a width 25, width adjusted little bit. And you see here, for this user login, I am applying a class bi person circle. It will put a symbol like this. And you see here, I am adding something like here, one more. See, this text box will have a class form control, and text box have a different appearance now. We have this text box with different appearance form control, and it is also different appearance. And see, the form is having suppose P4 or 3 padding is added. And see button here, this button will have a class btn warning and w100, and it becomes a button. So these are bootstrap related classes. If we know bootstrap, we can make the presentations more easy, and it is mandatory. See, at React level, we can't say that I don't know bootstrap, because React developer means a highly professionally advanced front end developer in current generation. In the current generation, the top level front end developers means React, Angular, Vue. These are the top front end developers, and without this knowledge, we don't take any web developer. Any web developer without the skills of React, Angular, Vue like technologies in their profile, we don't even call them. You are a Java developer, don't care. .NET developer, don't care. Without the skills of React, Angular in the current generation, you will not get calls at all from any company. And at React level, you cannot say, I don't know CSS and Bootstrap. You must master them. Because in interviews also, practical tests when they will give you some screen designs and ask you to recreate them. That means you must able to achieve the functionality as well as the design. So here I just used classes. You can have functions. See, for this form, I will put a class called alert, and I will put alert dismissible. And you see alert, I will give warning, and you can see it will be like this. This is an alert style. Can do in alert is in the heading, beside the heading, I will put a button. I will put BTN and BTN close. And you can see that there is a close button at the right side corner. And when I click on this button, it should close this particular screen. Then in Bootstrap, we can write a simple data BS dismiss. Dismiss, and it should dismiss what? Alert. It should dismiss alert. And you can see that when I click on this, it should close. Later, we can put a button, it will open up whenever we click login. So this is Bootstrap functionality. That means Bootstrap having classes and it have lot of component designs, carousels, nav bars, all these are designed by using Bootstrap. For example, Amazon is a React app. Amazon is built on React JS. And in Amazon, you see there is a carousel, am I right? That is Bootstrap. Because carousels are designed using Bootstrap, we can do that. So that means you are using a React application, and in that styling, you can apply by using this. Later, you will learn some more techniques. We can use Tailwind CSS. We can also use a library called MUI, Material UI. But first, you can just try this. If you are not aware of Bootstrap and all, in our Naresh IT YouTube channel, we have a Bootstrap workshop. A 3 sessions, 4 sessions Bootstrap workshop is there. You just watch that, you can easily understand. So that means generally our user interface, UI, full stack, all these people know about Bootstrap. If you are not aware of that, you can watch that. There we have shown how to use Bootstrap in web design. The classes, the components, how to use them and how to work with them. Because we will use them everywhere when we are designing good user interface, right? Now we enabled Bootstrap and we are using Bootstrap in our project. And we are using Bootstrap for our login screen. And here I just used a simple alert like concept. So you can apply the Bootstrap classes. Just syntax I will give. Generally how the classes will work. So we have a div. We can put a class some alert, warning, something like this. These are classes. We have padding, a padding not required initially this. These are classes. This is syntax for classes. So you are having suppose an input. So we put form control. So we are having a button. Then we put some class. Sorry, this is class name, na? Class name. Because in React it is class name. And this is BTN, some warning like this. So we have a syntax for some dynamic attributes. They are used for closing, opening like options. Dynamic attributes. You have some attributes like data BS target. So data BS toggle. Data BS dismiss. These are all some attributes. So we have like button, data BS dismiss, alert like this. So Bootstrap have classes and Bootstrap have some attributes. Because whenever we try to build a good app interface, these styles are required. Manually writing styles will always consume time. So we apply by using libraries like what? Bootstrap. So gradually in different examples I will show, but I will copy this example. I created a component called login.what? JSX. In this login JSX, whatever I written, I will copy this for you in the notes just for your help. What classes I have used. Am I right? Right. So this is login.jsx. Yesterday we designed, we added some more styling to this. Right. Now, once we know how to use these bootstrap enabled inside the project, I'm not teaching any bootstrap here. I'm just showing you how to enable that bootstrap in our project. Okay. Now, later we will build some interfaces where we have to use these all classes and effects. Okay. Now our project is enabled with bootstrap and we can design good interface. If you want to practice some interfaces, what you can do is you can try this website. Means later in our projects also I will show you. What you do is one simple note I will give to get ideas about design, page designs. So you can try Stitch, Google Stitch. You can try Google Stitch. It will give you some ideas about design. You can practice those designs. Functionalities, we will learn how to write the functionalities. Google Stitch is a famous AI tool used by developers these days. And what is the job of this AI tool is you ask your requirements, you give your requirements, then it is going to build an interface for you. And you must able to create such interfaces through your bootstrap and all. For example, you can visit this website and we will do this regularly in our practice. This is Stitch with Google. This is their official website. Stitch.withgoogle.com. You can create a free account here. It is absolutely free. And in this, after you log in with your account, so what you have to do, so you can open this Stitch with Google. This is Google Stitch. It is an AI tool. And in this, you go to web category. You have a web category here. Go to the web category and give the prompts here. I will give you a simple one. That means in this, so we have to uh, go to web category. Roughly I'm giving. So, and give following prompts. So what are the prompts I'm giving here is some create a shopping home page and nav bar with nav bar at the top with brand name, search bar, and social icons. So featured products in card style, in cards, with some suppose 4 into 4 featured products in cards with 4 into 4, and footer with contact and services at 4 into 4 at section. Okay, these are general prompts for creating a simple interface. So we are asking to design a shopping homepage. In that, a nav bar at the top. In that nav bar, what we want, and featured products below, and footer with contact and services. Copy this prompt and paste them in the web category here, and just click generate. When I click generate, it is going to generate a page for us. That means it is going to generate a user interface. Currently, majority of developers follow this Google Stitch for web designing. It will not just create, it will give you the complete HTML code also, but we don't want that code because we will design that in our React. So we will not use HTML, right? So it is taking the time to generate, and not only that, it will give you some further suggestions. Do you want to add this? Do you want to add that? It will ask you. If you select, it will keep on adding and modifying your page. We can do lot of modifications into that, and it is approximately taking time for 70 seconds. Fine. Now, why I am showing this? Because in future, in React, whatever examples we will try, first we will get idea, and that idea we will implement. We will not copy. That means based on that idea, we will design our own. For example, we will want to build one weather app. We will learn how to build a weather app. First, we need to get an idea about weather app, where which one should display, how it should display. That ideas these AI tools will give. Later, once you learn that ideas, at the end of our React, I will show you how AI tools will help you to generate and solve your problems also. So by using, I asked you to install Copilot, na? It is going to do that, right? Initially, we are taking the help of this stitch only for design. Okay, now almost it is ready. Let's see. And so the design, you can specifically ask to give the design suitable for Bootstrap also. Then it will give you the design which can be created using Bootstrap. Otherwise, sometimes designs are little complex, which requires additional lot of manual styling. So these this is the shopping homepage. That is the shopping homepage design that it creates for us. And you see the nav bar at the top. it comes with a search bar and some shortcut icons. And featured products are displayed 4 into 4 means 4 rows and 4 columns. Your wish, 2 rows, 4 columns. You can ask what you want. And at the footer, it will display the footer like this. Now, what is the developer's responsibility is to design this. We will create this. In the next levels of React, you are going to create this with real data coming from APIs. We will design and we will make not just design, we will make it work. Like when I click add to cart, it should add to cart. We can remove from cart. We will make it work. But these ideas will help you to design good. So what you have to do, come here, get the idea and create. And this design, these type of cards and all, we will do by using which one? Bootstrap. I will show you how to do that, right? But now I am not designing this because I just showed you what we will do in future with Bootstrap. Because for this we need to learn how to get data in Shona. We will not put fixed photos. We will get from database and use them because every few days featured products will be changing, right? They will not have fixed price or fixed offers. They will be changing. So we will learn that how to do. This is just to show you how to get the ideas. Okay. Now, once you know this, we will try to create such designs with the data, right? So first, what we will do now, you know the bootstrap and you learned how to get some ideas of design. Now, to get the data and present the data and show everything in the components, we need to learn another major concept in React, and that is data binding. React data binding. This is very important point you should know. How data binding works and how do we manage data binding, right? Actually, what is the concept of data binding and how generally we do in JavaScript? Data binding is nothing but data present in any particular source. We have to bring it and display in the UI. And any modification in that UI, we should update back into the source. That is the concept of data binding. That means the first point here, generally with your JavaScript concept, I will explain here. So we have a variable username and we want this variable to be displayed inside a text box. We have a text box and here we have some user. We want to display that inside the text box. Inside text box, we want to show this. That means what is the current requirement here is, so here we need to get the data from this and display inside the text box. And if any changes happened, it should update back into this reference. Am I right? That's the concept of data binding. Data binding is a mechanism of accessing data from source and update into UI. Identify the changes in the UI and update back into source. So that is data binding, and React says that I will support only one-way binding. One-way binding means we can access the data from the source and display in UI, but any changes in UI will not update back. That is one feature of React. It says that accidentally, intentionally, if any changes are made, I will not update until or unless you enable update. Actually, in JavaScript, problem is default it is updated. Not JavaScript, other technologies like Angular and all, they say that we have two-way binding. They enable it. but we should not enable. We should learn how to handle both techniques. Now in JavaScript, how do you do this? In JavaScript, how we will get the data from the source and update into the UI. For this, actually, we need to write logic something like this. How? Document dot get element by ID, am I right? So suppose that is a text box. Into the text box, we have to put a value. Value is what? Username. We need to get that and display. Now, how do you identify changes inside the text box and update? We need to write some function. We say on change na, on change, on key up, on blur, different events are there. We can use the events. On that event, what we have to do? On that event, we have to collect the value from text box and update in username. Into username, we have to update the value na. Get element by ID, what is it? Text box and whatever the new value you entered. Am I right? This is a lengthy process in JavaScript and React will simplify this. That means how you can access data from source and display in UI. It's a simple technique in React. Actually, in JavaScript, we have to do all this. How React will do? Let's see. And here, so many more points you need to understand. Let's go to our components and I will add a new component called data binding. Every example, I will add a new component and here data binding is a folder. In that data binding dot what? JSX. And how to create a function, export function data binding. And inside that we will return a simple div. Because I'm using Bootstrap, I will put a container fluid for good padding. I will put a heading, some data binding. Okay, I want to make this in the startup. Go to main and change from login to what? Data binding. Your VS Code is intelligent enough to import it automatically. If not, you have to make sure that first you imported it. I showed yesterday how to import now. So it is already imported and you can see data binding is working in our screen. Now what I will do here is in this now see data binding is working. Let's go to the data binding. Here I am creating a variable called username and we store some value inside. I want to display that inside a paragraph. I want to show hello and that username. Actually, this is a lengthy process earlier. Why? Because I need to get paragraph and inside paragraph we need to display. Here it is simple. It uses a binding expression block that is called data binding expression and you just access username and automatically it will show that. That's simple. We don't need much DOM methods. For example, I want to display in a text box. Input type is what? Text. Then just text box will have a value. To the value you have to bind using a binding expression block. What you should bind? Username. Then it is going to get and display that. So binding is very simple in React, but one way binding only support. Very interesting you will see here. Generally, if it is JavaScript, I can click inside and I can modify. However, it will not update because we haven't written any event. But here I can't even modify. I can't even delete it. You can't type, you can't delete, it's not working. Because React uses by default one-way binding. Accidentally also if you try to change, it will not change. We have to enable. How? I will show you. So, but first point, what is data binding and how it is handled? What is the block? That is important. Let's see here. So what is the concept of data binding? So data binding is a technique of accessing data from source and updating into UI elements. It can identify the changes in UI and update back into source. Update back into source. JavaScript requires lot of DOM methods for data binding. JavaScript requires lot of DOM methods for data binding. React can bind by using a binding expression, that is block. React can bind using a binding expression. So syntactically, and I want to bind this in a paragraph, just you need to put name. You want to bind in a text box, value is equal to name. Like this we need to do. So React supports one-way binding implicitly. That means internally it supports only one-way binding. React supports one-way binding implicitly. It can bind the data with UI elements, but will not allow to change. But will not allow to change. So it can bind the data with UI elements, but it will not allow to change. So two-way binding requires explicit implementation, which you will learn later. Explicit implementation means from external techniques you have to implement. By using external techniques, you have to implement. That means React cannot use two-way binding. It can use, but externally you have to define it. Default it is one way. Now here, so many technical things you have to learn. So many important points you need to learn. See. So to show you this example, to show you the basic example of data binding, what I have done is I stored data in a variable. I stored some data in a variable and I am using it. But this is not the correct way. This is not right way. You should never use variables to store data for a component locally. This is completely wrong technique. It's working because just I showed you the JavaScript way. That means storing data for any component. Our component is data binding. And for this component, you want to use some data that may come later from any APIs from backend databases or somewhere. You should never store in a variable. Why we should not store in any variables? What is the reason why we should not store data in a variable? Then where to store data? You are dealing with a web application with single page environment. What is the problem here is you already know the concept, like in JavaScript you learned variables, operate variables or any others are function scope na. That means they are accessible inside a function. They are not accessible outside function. Here, what is problem with variable? First problem, variables are immutable. Immutable means they cannot change dynamically. They cannot change dynamically. According to situation, they cannot change. That is one major problem with variables. Another problem is variables will not allow you to use the data across requests. To one component, we will make several requests. Across requests, data is not available. Generally, you learn this in web designing. You know that web is using HTTP protocol. Am I right? HTTP is a stateless protocol. Na? You heard? HTTP is a stateless protocol. Stateless protocol means it cannot remember information between requests. In one page, what actions performed, another page don't know. For that, you have to implement lot of state management techniques. Every web application requires state management techniques. State management techniques allows you to store the data and use the data across requests. In JavaScript, you will learn state management techniques like cookies, local storage, session storage, query string. These are all state management techniques of JavaScript. We have client side, server side, different state management techniques. Actually, what is the solution for handling data in any component is always use a state. By using a state, maintain the data so that you can use it across requests. Otherwise, data is not available across requests. There are so many or component. How we can handle data for component. So first important is React application uses HTTP as protocol, and HTTP is a stateless protocol. Is a stateless protocol. So it cannot remember data between requests. Data between requests. Hence, it is not recommended to store data using variables. So It is not recommended to store data using variables for a component. So then how we can manage the data? How we have to handle the data? So that means if you simply put where some name is John, it will handle it. But as we discussed, this is not good. Am I right? This is not good for component. That's not good for component. Then how we do this is, how we manage is, every component have a local state. Every component is having a local state. By default, it have a local state. So actually, so every component has a local state, and actually it is created while creating component. Local state is created while creating component. What you can do is, you can use local state to store data for component, and local state of component can be accessed by using use state. It is accessed by using use state hook. We call it as a hook. We will detailedly learn about what are hooks and all. Actually, hook is, technically speaking, hook is a service. It is a service, and we have to use the service. So generally, what is the concept of service? Just outline I will tell you, because later detailedly we will learn about a concept called hooks. So I will just explain the scenario. Means how your libraries are built. One scenario I will just explain here. See, for example, generally I will explain a basic flow here. We have some values and we have some functions. So we are having some values and functions. These values and functions we want to use in a React app. Am I right? So in a React application, I want to use those values and functions. Just roughly, this is an React app. And in a React app, I want to use these values and functions. Generally, we don't recommend to use the values and functions directly. We don't recommend them to use directly. Actually, every technology, how they build the infrastructure is, these values and functions are kept in a location called factory. A set of values and functions are kept inside. They are kept inside a factory. Understood? A set of values and functions are kept in a factory. Then you may ask like, okay, can I use this factory in my app so that I can get those functions and values? No, it's not recommended to use factory. Actually, we can use this factory. In that React application. But using the factory for React application is not recommended. It's not recommended. Why it is not recommended to use the factory? Because if you use a factory, it will follow a mechanism called singleton, a single call. It follows a mechanism called single call. Single call means what happens is app want to use a function, then we have to create one object. Through that object, we have to access the function. I want the same function some another location again. Then again, I need to create an object. Through that object, I need to access the function. So to access a function 10 times, you need to create 10 objects. Understood? That means an object need to be created every time to use a function. This mechanism is called as single call. So that's not a good idea to use the factory directly. Then what our developers will do is our developers will build a service. Developers will build a service. Service is a collection of factories. A set of factories are kept in one service. And what happens is, what is the specialty about service? Service also we don't use directly. Actually, you will have so many services. For example, so suppose we are having, so here, okay. Suppose we are having so many services. We are having so many services. We are having so many services. Different color I will give, yeah. But what happens is, we want to use these services in our project, and we will not directly use the services in project. What we do is, these services we keep inside. These services we keep inside. We inject the services in a component. Understood? That means we design one component, and inside that component we will put these services. That means we will create one component. So what we will do is, generally in this component we will add only which service we need. Understood? That means I want only one service, or I want two services. I will just add only which service I want in that component, and we will use this component in our React application. Understood? And actually, these services are used inside the component. Am I right? Now, why you are using services in a component? Because what is the specialty about service is, service uses a mechanism called, singleton. It uses a mechanism called singleton. Singleton is a mechanism where an object is created for first request, and the same object is used across all requests. When you learn technologies like OOPS, like Java, C++, you will learn a singleton pattern. Singleton pattern means you will create a class in such a way that a class can have only one object. Understood? That means an object is created for first time, second time it will not allow. And through that object, you can access the members any number of times. If I can create multiple objects for a class, then it is single call. If I can create only one object for a class, then it is called singleton. And services are used with this mechanism. That means every component based technology works like this. So what is hook? Hook is a service. Means what? Hook is a service means it is already built with some functions and values. You can just use the service. What is the advantage of using service? You don't need to write everything. Already it is designed. You have to just inject and use it. For example, you are designing a login form. In a login form, what is problem is, any robot can use our login form. And to prevent robots, we use CAPTCHA. If anyone asks you like, can you write code for CAPTCHA? That is a wrong question. Because CAPTCHA is not a code to write, CAPTCHA is a service to use in our form. That means already somebody written that code. We have to just inject and use. And who is famous for CAPTCHA? We have a Google reCAPTCHA, right? Google have a reCAPTCHA service. What they do? They say that you are building websites, you want CAPTCHAs, we will give. That means you just inject the service and use the service. You don't write, because CAPTCHA is to verify whether the user is a human or robot. And to verify, lot of AI programming is required. You don't need to write all that. Already they have written it, just you have to use. So that means your React is given with lot of built-in services. Your React is given with lot of built-in services. You just inject them and use them. It will save a lot of time. And these services are technically, we call them as what? Hooks. React have built-in hooks. We can create our own hooks. And one of the famous hook that you are going to use is use state. To just explain you the concept of hook, I just explained how libraries are built. In any technology, library is built in the same way. That means how the libraries are built, a set of values and functions are kept in a factory. Factories are kept in services. Services are not directly used. They are injected into components. And we build app by using component. By using components, we design everything. Now, this use state is a hook. To explain you the concept, I told you that actually what is hook? Hook is a predefined service, is a predefined business logic. Hook is a predefined business logic. It is a service. Service follows singleton pattern. Later, detailed hook concept I will explain, but how to use this state? What is this use state is? We will see what is this use state. So it is a hook provided by React to access the local state of component. You can access the local state of component using this hook. Remember, its name itself tells that it is using the state. It is not creating the state. Am I right? Use state means it is using the state. That means you don't need to create the state. Already it is there. When a component is created, automatically a state is created. And but it has some limitations, I will tell you. First, the state we are using, we are not creating. Already it is created. We don't need to create the state. So what it will do is use state. Actually, it returns, it returns, use state returns a getter and setter. It returns a getter and setter. And you know the purpose of them. So getter is used to read and return value from state. Am I right? And setter is used to assign a new value into state. So state contains a getter and setter. So through getter you can access and through setter you can assign. So how do we configure? See, So how do we configure that is, see, first I will just show you the point. Actually, how do we define the state? Suppose here I am roughly showing you, here we are using use state, and it imports state automatically from React core library. This use state is going to return, it is going to return two members. One is getter, another one setter. Getter is at index 0, setter is at index 1. That means in JavaScript you learnt array destructuring. Array destructuring is a JavaScript array structures technique. Actually, what you learnt in arrays of JavaScript is array destructuring means, just roughly I'll show here. Suppose, so it is nothing but we are having where data is equal to, it is an array. We have 10 and 20. We want to store 10 and 20 in two separate variables. Am I right? Generally, the old technique, how we have to do is we declare a variable in that data of 0. Am I right? So this is B and this is data of 1. We will separate the values and store in two different references. But this is an outdated technique, old. What is the new technique is in JavaScript, you can declare two variables, into that you can store data. That's it. That means now what happens is in the data, what is at 0, it is stored in A, and what is at 1, that is stored in B. That's a destructuring technique of arrays. It's a very common architecture of arrays in JavaScript. We generally use this very commonly in JavaScript. And you see, when I try to print document.write A, then obviously it should print 10. It should print that value 10. That means that's a destructuring architecture, and we follow this everywhere actually. Now what happens is, by using that destructuring architecture, we declare a constant. One is getter, another one is setter is equal to use state. Understood? That means it is going to return getter and setter. Getter is at 0 and setter is at 1. And remember, those are formal names. You can give any name. You can give any name. For example, I want to get price and I want to set price. Then what we will do, price, and here we will use set price. You can use any names, doesn't matter, but the first one refers to getter, second one is setter. Now what you can do is you can initialize some data into this. Understood? That means now where is this data? So it is in price, so we have to access that now. So simple, how we can access. Suppose I will put a paragraph and here I will put here option. What is it? So suppose price is equal to the access price. That means it is going to access the price and show. Now here so many points are there. In interviews they ask lot of questions. We will see them, how the questions are asked here. Now the first, how to set, later I will tell you. Initially remember, setter is not mandatory until or unless you set. Setter is required only when you want to set. Otherwise just you can define, you can store anything inside. And remember, so what can be the data inside that price? You can have any type. You have all JavaScript data types now. Array, number, string, booleans, null, undefined, anything you can store. I will show different data types also. But what is the key point you should know? That it returns getter and setter. Constant getter setter is equal to use state. Is equal to use state. And in this you can initialize any value. So what is this above syntax? So this getter, setter, this is nothing but it is destructure declaration. It is called destructure declaration. So that is array destructure. Now here one more point is, what is frequently asked question here is some frequently asked questions related to this concept. First one is, can we configure can we configure state using var let keywords? Var and let keywords, I am using const na. In JavaScript, variables are defined using var let const, you know all these na, right? Now the question is, in interviews they ask, why you are using const, why not var let? You can use, there is no problem. That means, can we use var let? So here answer is yes. We can use var and let also for declaring, but not recommended. Why it is not recommended? Because what is the point about is, generally you learnt in JavaScript difference between var let and const. Why we prefer using const? Because state must be initialized and used. Understood? State must be initialized and used. So it should not allow to declare and use. Generally var and let keywords allow to declare and use. Na? You learn declaration, assignment, initialization. Three differences you know in JavaScript, right? So var and let will allow declaration, and you know that const will not allow declaration. You know na? Const will not allow declaration. Const will allow only initialization. So why they recommend to use only const? Because state must be initialized and used. It cannot be declared and used. That is the rule. So if anyone asks why you are using const for state, so the answer for this is, state must be initialized and used. It should not allow declaration and assignment. It should not allow declaration and assignment. If we configure state with var and let, then they allow declaration and assignment. So which is not good for state. That will lead to lot of technical issues in future. That is the reason it is always important, recommended to define by using what? Const. Now, if you tell this, then interviewer will ask another question. What he will ask is, then if I use const for state, how I can use a setter? Understood? Because constant will not allow assignment, na? Then how setter will work? Then he will ask like, then prove me this point. Why you are using a setter? Setter will is not allowed in constant. That means now the point here is another question asked here is relative to this is, so if you declare, if you initialize, if you configure using const, then how you can set a value? Why they ask this question? Const will not allow to assign. It will not allow to assign. So can we change a constant variable? Yes, we can change. Constant is not read only. What is the meaning of constant means the value remains constant from start to end. That means after initialization, the value will remain constant. Later, you can initialize with a new value. You can initialize with a new value. Can a constant change? Yes. A constant can change. I will show you here. See, generally in your JavaScript, usually, but the technique is important to understand here. You see, suppose I am using constant x is equal to 10 and document dot write I am printing x is equal to x, and you can see that it is printing the x value. I will run this separately and you can see it is showing x10. I will try to assign x as 20. It is not allowing that. You can see it will show me an error in my console. It shows an error. Assignment to constant is not allowed now. You know this, huh? Right now, see, can I change the 10 value now? I can't change the 10 value, but actually I can change the 10 value. If I take prompt and enter number, am I right? Then what happens is you are entering 20 or 30 into this. So later I enter 50, it will change. Constant can change, but not with assignment. It can change with initialization. You can reinitialize with a new value. And that is the technique it follows. That means if anyone asks like if you configure using const, how you will set a value, then what should be your answer? So we set value not by assignment. Understood? Huh? Not by assignment. So it is done by using initialization. That means we will initialize the memory newly. For example, we have a constant. So we have price and set price we have, and is equal to use state, and price is some 40 something. Now price, set price is to set na, set price is equal to 50. This is invalid. Why it is invalid? Assignment to constant not allowed na. Assignment to constant is not allowed. But if I say set price is 50, it is allowed. So this is allowed. So this is valid. Why? Because I am not assigning, I am initializing now. What is the parenthesis indicates? Allocate memory again. It allocates memory again. And in that memory, you can pass in new data. That means you cannot assign, but you can initialize. If anyone asks like how you will set into a constant, then answer is by initialization, not by assignment. So these are very frequent questions in interviews. Even for experienced people, they ask this, like why you are using const, why can't I use var and let? You can use, but that is wrong for state because state nature is to initialize and use. And where let will allow to declare and use, we should not do that. That's the reason const is mandatory. Another point, if you use const, how you will set the values? By not by assignment, by using what? Initializing, right? So this is basic here. How to initialize and all I will tell you. but you have just learned one concept of how to configure state, how to store data and use it. Am I right? How to set is a different approach. We will see. That we'll see in next session. Tomorrow we will continue. Okay. In tomorrow's session, we will discuss how the setters will work and how do we define them. Okay. Right.